Neospark webinar is focusing on the gut health management, how best the shrimp gut health should be managed for the well-being as well as the improved performance at the farm level. Ultimately, the focus is how best farmers are going to get a better yield and making the sustainable farming activity for the future prospects. Here, as you know well, the gut of shrimp is straight and the important organ for better growth as well as the total yield of that particular pond. We can say the overall the shrimp aquaculture farming prospects are based on the shrimp gut health management. So let us see the shrimp global production. So since 2010 to the future next 5 years of 2025. Here you can see after introduction of Venamai into Asian countries, the production increased from 3.5 million metric ton to 4.0 million metric ton, followed by the major speed break happened in 2013. There is a drastic reduction of shrimp production. Further, you can see the next 6 years there was a tremendous growth from 2014 to 2019. But the second biggest the speed breaker we have seen in 2020 with the impact of COVID-19 globally. This pandemic situation made severe impact on the production of shrimp and made almost a negative growth of 10%. But from now onwards, from 2021 to 2025, there is a continuous growth of the shrimp production, almost from 4 lakh metric ton to, we can say, 4.8, even 5 million metric ton. So with this, the industry is focused to give importance for the shrimp farming because its utilization for the ever increasing global population as well as to provide highly nutrient food for the global population. Here, as I am saying about this next 5 years growth, we need to take care the proper management aspects, both in terms of the gut health, water quality management, as well as the post-larval quality. All these inputs will have a positive note on this growth trend. At the same time, the projected figures may be around 11% for the next 4 years, we can see in the shrimp production, as well as the total growth of this shrimp farming is depend on the quality of the post larva. It's very important as of now the specific pathogen free seed of Vanamai is giving high performance till 2019, even though there are the major disease outbreaks like early mortality syndrome, the followed by WSSV or white fishes syndrome. But now the white fishes syndrome is the major disease and making a low performance throughout the world. So at this juncture, I would like to share importance of the Indian shrimp farming in terms of the export performance or production or what are the data given by the EMPADA during May 2021. Here by volume, you can see there is almost 10.8% native growth 2021 over 1920. At the same time, the value also reduced in the same tenure about -6%. But here the important thing is the unit value. The unit value wise, there is no deviation at all in both the years. Even there is a pandemic situation, that is very important because the consumption of seafood through the retail outlets instead of wholesale market or the major malls throughout the world. With this very positive note that even though what are the minus native of this native of 10% growth, that could be easily overcome in the coming years. It's the usage pattern of the current COVID situation. At the same time, the aquaculture versus the capture fishery contribution in Indian scenario, there is about 2.5% growth in 2021 over 2019 and 20. At the same time, there is a drastic reduction in the capture fishery in the same period of time. Even the value wise, also there is a lot of changes in that in terms of aquaculture. This very positive note happened in 2021. So here The export data given by the Marine Ports Export Development Authority has given data since 2010 to 2021, which indicates there is a continuous growth from 10, 11 to 17 and 18. Almost more than 7,000 million US dollars has exported to USA, Europe, Japan, China, and the different major import countries. But after that, there is a decreased trend in 2018 to 2021. There is continuous reduction on the export total volume. Now it is around 6,000 million US dollars. But here, if you see the itemized export of seafood, the shrimp is the major contributor, almost 75%. There's a 3/4 is shrimp. The remaining are small quantities of 6.7% of frozen fish, the frozen cuttlefish 3.7, the frozen squid 4.5, and the other small quantities all put together, making the contribution of the Indian seafood export by item. But here, as an important commodity, the shrimp, it is very important for the total seafood exports in Indian scenario. That too is a total export oriented unit as per the government norms. So still we need to improve this area with better management practices, particularly the aquaculture side. Then come to the market phase export. As I told, the US is the major contributor. Here, 41% is USA contribution, followed by the China 15%, and European Union 13.8%, the Southeast Asia 11%, the Japan almost 7%, Middle East 4%, and the all other contributed about 7%. But as USA, the 41% is the major contribution. Still, there is a big scope to increase the overall volume in the coming years. Then come to the important area, the aquaculture feed and its feeding. Usually, any animals or aquatic animal or terrestrial animal, the life starts, it determines the future life performance. In the sense, the life start sets the life performance. For that, there's a tremendous debates and interactions and research and development happened. And recently, in the Feed Navigator Summit 2020, the most of the feed industry as well as the livestock producers, they have been recognizing the importance of feeding their animals an optimum nutrient supply in the first few weeks of the life. This is in order to get productivity gains throughout the animal's lifetime. In the sense, the early life stage of the rearing animal is very important in terms of its health, the gut health, as well as the better performance at further life of that animal. For example, the shrimp post larva supply is dependent on the three primary areas. That includes the nutrition, optimizing the growth and the well-being of the post larva, and further performance at the farm level, at the biosecurity, the production practices which are measured at the hatchery level, and the genetic strains development. As we're talking about the SPF, even the Pinus modern, its performance is giving a highly successful result in the recent past in India. So like that, the new variants which are going to come up in the coming future definitely will have a positive impact on the overall production performance. At the same time, the life of shrimp is having many stages, that what we call as a metamorphosis of nauple to zoea, zoea to mysis to post larva. Here you can say the tough stages requires proper nutrition. So ultimately, why this nutrition is required for the different post larva stages as well as even before that the larva stage mates. The production is a stressful event in most of the hatchery production cycle. Here, metamorphosis requires dramatic changes in organ, the membrane, as well as the cell development, as well as many more changes in the entire organelles. At the same time, the PL gut tract is poorly developed. Because of this weakened or improper developed gut system is prone to attack the pathogens if it is there in the hatchery tank. That makes transmission of disease from hatchery to farm through this PL. At the same time, optimizing nutrition is critical during this phase of production. There are variant features we can see here. The physical characteristics of that feed, which are going to feed during the larval stages, the nutritional value of feed, the process method of feed, the macronutrients like protein, minerals, vitamins, and the micronutrients which helps a lot in the total metabolic changes. Same time, the water quality, the physicochemical and the microbiological water quality parameters which supports the buoyancy, the leaching losses of the nutrients, the feeds, and the binding property. So all these things play a major role to tackle the well-being as well as the better growth, make reduce the disease impact. The same time, the type of feed delivery and its availability, the total number of larvae in the given situation. At the same time, the nutrient digestibility and bioavailability to the larval stages. So with this, it is very easy to understand there are different type of feeding practices like live feeds or formulated or crumbled or pelletized feed formulation. But at early stage, normally the zoea, it requires live feeds, particularly the phytoplankton, which may include isochrysis or nanochloropsis or tetrasagmis and various species which are available at the hatchery. At the same time, the zooplankton to provide high protein, as well as there is a mechanism called prey and live zooplankton is very attracting to the larval forms in the normal system, that is prey and predator activity. With that, the activity and the metabolic growth and resistant power is usually very high to the post larva. So in that way, the live feed system has been suggested, the age-old practices that is still continuing. But here there are some disadvantages over all the advantages. Like the challenge with the live feed, particularly with Artemia salina, here the nuclei and the risk of pathogens with Artemia, particularly Artemia nuclei are heavily contaminated with bacteria. There is a high risk exists that potential pathogens are transferred via the food to the larval gut and to the larval. So ultimately, the cross contamination levels with this live feed will make some sort of disadvantage. That is very high risk in terms of biosecurity, live feed quality aspects, the production reliability, and the production cost. All these things should be considered. There are gaps in nutrition knowledge, which is very important to the industry. For example, there are complete or nearly complete knowledge about nutrient and ingredients for just a few species have been reported. Maybe like the salmon, the trout, European sea bass, tilted sea bream, European carp, and followed by the red sea bream, the Kuruma shrimp, the Japanese shrimp, the black tiger shrimp, Indian penis modern. Some of the red fed crops like Indian major crops as well as the Chinese major crops. It is very indicative that the nutritional aspect is only limited to certain species, which making some disadvantage over rearing of the aquatic animals which are upcoming. Even still, there is a big scope for the industry, like the white leg shrimp, the pangasius, the Asian sea bass farming. Here, there is a big gap about the nutritional requirement, particularly the proteins and amino acids. Still, there is a gap. Lipids and fatty acids, the vitamin and mineral contents, and the phosphorus used in this will be compared with the both fish and shrimp. Its nutrition. Adoption of use of enzymes in the feeds and the use of functional feeds are reduced in the feeds. So all these things should be thoroughly established. And recent past, there are some inputs on this subject. Still, it is a trial and error base is running throughout the world. The global aquafeed industry challenges as a present discussion recently happening throughout the world. What are the major impact of the fish meat on the growth of aquaculture production? For example, if you see the aquaculture production by 2030 is almost 120 million metric ton. This is worldwide production data. But by the time that is in 2030, the fish meal, the total volume, expected volume is around 6 million metric ton only. So just compare the total aquaculture production versus the fish meal is a big gap in the figures. Here we need to understand how best we are going to replace this fish meal or overcome this fish meal deficit to improve the overall aquaculture production. Means we need to have a proper other source. For example, as we're talking about this 120 millimetric ton production by 2030, the required feed is about almost 168 millimetric ton. Suppose the FCR is coming around 1.4 on average. At the same time, the average fish meal inclusion about 12% in the current scenario. So the 12% of this fish meal inclusion in the feeds requires almost 20 million metric ton 2030. But by 2030, the projected figures for the fish meal availability is only 6 million metric ton. So the deficiency of almost 14 million metric ton is there, that is as far as the FAO 2019 data. But if you see the other alternative for the fish meal to get the proper protein is this soybean meal, the poultry byproduct meal, the insect meal, like that. They're focusing on utilizing in the industry. But here, the usage of possible inputs like soybean meal is totally plant-based protein. The plant contains different cell components which may not be digested properly. At the same time, they have some sort of anti-nutritional factors like the phytate, that is phytic acid, that is the complex form of phosphorus, as well as the minerals, particularly like iron, zinc, and calcium. So this complex form of the mineral along with the protein that may not be get digested properly in the shrimp digestive system, that makes some sort of disturbance in the nutrients availability, digestion, and ultimately that phosphorus content, the phytate content goes waste without making available to the shrimp. So that again disturbs the water quality and the eutrophication with the highest quantity of phosphorus. So to convert this complex form into simple form, there is a inclusion of different type of enzymes along with probiotic. Then only it will be ideal to make conversion of all nutrients which are given in the plant protein. But poultry byproducts, again, there are some issues like antibiotic usage in the poultry sector. That cannot be ideal for the shrimp farming because it is export oriented. It affects the European market. Insect meal is there already in the USA and Europe, but in India it is infant. So like that, even though there are some alternations, there are some gaps. We need to fulfill those gaps with the proper the feed A2s like Neospark, Ultrazyme, PFS, Tech Block, or MGS. So all these can enhance the total availability of these nutrients in the feeds and that make a better performance of the shrimp. So here by having this information, we need to have a proper management for the sustainability and to see the better performance in the coming days. Then come to the health management. Here there are two terms, dysbiosis versus the diseases. So here the occurrence of any disease in aquatic system is have the two important segments, that is external influences as well as internal influences. For example, external influence, if you see the diet, the prebiotics usage pattern, the probiotic and its usage pattern, the animal illness, the antibiotic usage, the living environment. So these are the major influenceable factors, health as well as the disease incidents in that farming system. Same time, the internal host properties like age, genetics, stress, physiological process, the anatomical structure, the physiology of the digestive tract, the feed and its feeding system. Like that, both these external and internal host properties will influence the well-beingness or disease outbreak. Here, the entire scenario is you can see with the simple the density, diversity, and the activity of the gut bacteria. Here, this density or diversity or activity of the gut bacteria, it is taking in a proper way with a better positive note with the homeostasis. It is the well-being of the animal. It is a shrimp or fish in aquatic media. So in that way, to make proper biodiversity of these gut probiotics will have health of the shrimp. The other way, if you say the dysbiosis is nothing but the domination of one sort of microbes, maybe Vibrio, that may lead to the one way of action of these pathogens making the infection and disease outbreak. So in that way, we need to have a proper holistic approach, both external and internal factors. The external means the water quality, soil quality, its management, and internal means the gut health. As you know well, the problems with the current shrimp, particularly the days of culture, early days mortality, the low performance of particularly the Vibrio says, that leading to the very low biomass at the end of the harvest. This is taking more DOC as well as the low yield. Otherwise, the fast growth pattern, whenever there is a better management in the early days, at least 2 to 3 weeks, that makes the fast growth with low DOC, the low days of culture, the maximum yield can be availed. So here, how best we are going to take care the initial days of the farming, the first 2 to 3 weeks of farming, and its impact will give the success rate of that farm. So in that way, for example, the success rate again depend on the juvenile quality, which are going to select from the hatchery, making the abundance and pathogenicity. Whenever there is a problem, automatically the infection occurs and making the white face syndrome, EHP and RMS. So all these things simply making the low survival rate, low growth rate and low yield. That's not at all viable. So let us see the early days of farming is very important in the given situation. Same time, the successful control of these pathogen vibrio has to be make a commercial way of approach, and still there are decades of practices of the management hatchery post larva. But sometimes what happened, there is a keep on changing the management strategies for managing the pathogen or the health. Whatever the management that is being taken care at that particular hatchery, that should yield a better success. Particularly the management in the sense of the biosecurity measures, particularly the facility having these dryouts, control of carriers or vectors, proper water disinfection, control of varied pathogens that including the Vibrio, EHP or WSSV virus, the source which are going to get the broodstock, the specific pathogen-free broodstock, the Naple source as well as the disinfection protocol at the hatchery level. The another important is water quality management, like water exchange, the tank transfers, or temperature, salinity, ammonia nitrate, and the other water quality parameters. So all these things should be managed with the optimum range. Then only the animal stable feed intake, buoyancy, digestion, assimilation will be under normal condition. At the same time, the last important is therapeutics. Here, as old practice, the antibiotic treatment or chemical antibiotic treatment is there throughout the world. But here, the usage of these therapeutics, particularly antibiotics or chemical antibiotics, will have a negative impact, particularly on the formation of the resistant, and that will become the superbugs and making severe infection. This is very true in the shrimp farming throughout the world. So alternatively, if you see the probiotics, the ideal strains of probiotics, along with the prebiotic carbon source, the feed acute and organic treatments are the most ideal, which does not have any side impact on the host as well as to the aquatic media. With that, we need to have a proper holistic approach to make the healthy post larva at the hatchery level. So here again, the gut health management is very crucial. For example, if somebody uses antibiotics, the shrimp hatchery system, what happens? Simply there is the process called perturbation of the gut microbiome engage. Here this by definition perturbation means alteration in the physiological process. So here the digestion as well as the molting process is very important in the shrimp. The hepatopancreas functions, enzyme secretion, as well as the endocrine system, nervous system, the blood circulatory system, all systems will get effect with the usage of antibiotics. That is nothing but the perturbation. So here we need to understand properly the native impact of antibiotics. Then only it will be making healthy life for the early stage of the shrimp that make impact on the domination of ideal probiotic colonization and improvement in the intestinal immunity and making suppressing this perturbation. So for this reason only, the better to stop the usage of antibiotics, and recently the EMPEDA is giving certificates to some of the hatcheries which are producing the shrimp larvae without any antibiotic uses. Ultimately here the target is how best the correlation of the microbiota is making impact on the immunity development as well as the better performance for the improved survival and growth. Ultimately, what we can say, the feeding as important as the feed. What are the ingredients we are including the feed? That's one part. how best we are feeding the feeds is another part. So sometimes in aquatic media, the leaching losses of these antibiotics make improper reaching of the desired concentration of antibiotic to the animal. That's one. The same time, the low concentrated leaching antibiotics will make a disturbance in the microbiota of the water as well as this entire tank. So once these resistant bacteria reaches to the farming system, that will have a negative impact on the shrimp farming. So this cascading effect we need to stop, and we need to stop these antibiotics. Out of all organs of the shrimp body, the gut is very important because what are the gut microbiome? There's a combination of multiple microbes will make the healthy system, because almost all diseases will start from the gut. At the same time, the health of the animal is determined by the microbiota in the gut. It was said by Hippocrates in 4060 BC. So it is the age-old practice. How best we are going to take care of the gut of the animal, which will make impact on its well-being and growth. At the same time, this is a recent published data, May 26, 2020. A potential prokaryote and microsporidian pathogenic microbiome that may cause the white feces syndrome. Here, the outcome of this publication is there are three pathogens which are making impact and causing the white feces syndrome. The one is the EHP, and the second one is Vibrio species, and the third one is Propionigenium. So this Propionigenium is the single species with 4 strains, only single species with 4 strains, complete anaerobic, and grow with more than 15 ppt. In the sense, whenever there is a high salinity water shrimp farming is there, it is very prone to occur the white feces syndrome with the combination of these three, the HP, Vibrio, and Propionigenium. But here, the combination of all these three is making WFS. But whenever the infection with only HP, there is no chance of getting white feces syndrome. In the sense, the combination of these three pathogens are making this white feces syndrome. So here we need to understand what are the correlation between all these three pathogens, and how best we are going to reduce these pathogens individually. One is EHP, the source basically from the broodstock feeding system, from there to the eggs to the larva stages. How best they are going to take care of this EHP infection transmission from parent to the offspring. Similarly, the Vibrio. And this Propionigenium is available throughout the coastal waters, and whenever the host is become big, then only it is propagating, and these microbiota increasing more and making the infection. So that is a recent published data, but still we need to study. So ultimately here, the application of the zootechnical or functional feed additives like Neospark, the Tech Block, the alternative PFS, the MGS, at early age could improve greatly the quality and performance of the shrimp, the fish juveniles. Tech Block helps control of gut pathogens and speed up the maturation of their immune system. Inclusion of gut with beneficial bacteria with Ultrazyme PFS will create competitive exclusion against opportunistic bacteria. MGS, the metabolic growth stimulator, is the first of its kind product to stimulate metabolism, thereby to increase the growth rate. Ultimately, here all three, the gut health management products, AFS, Tech Block, MGS, is very important to use at the early ages of the life. Here, ultimately, what are the key important to take home message means post-on quality is very critical. The stress and other microbiological upset in the gut system make the shrimp susceptible to the many more diseases. Strengthening biosecurity, improving shrimp health, and reducing environmental and biological stress are three keys in disease control. The holistic approaches are viable for the control of the major disease in shrimp farm. So we are having a range of products to increase profitability with higher survivability and greater efficiency, improved water quality, stable water quality and higher quality ingredient, production, minimized feed offering with longer shelf life. So the Neospark, a GMP plus family QS EIA, CGMP, ISO 9001-2015 certified company, antibiotic free registered products. With this, the farmer success and farmer long run of this farming activity is very important to make sustainability of the shrimp farming. Thank you all.